Welcome to the Truth Podcast. I'm your host, Hany Rambod, and I have none other. Do you even have a nickname?
People call me Ruff Diesel.
That's right, Ruff Diesel. Yeah. That's right. I forgot about that. My bad. I got Terrence Ruffin in the house. He drove all the way up from Houston. We've been talking about doing something together for a minute and getting him on the podcast, and then doing a workout. So this time, in the past, I've done workouts, and then we come in and we talk about it. This time, we're doing it the other way around. He had just ate when he came in with his photographer/videographer, and then got to eat. You did get a chance to get Kevin to give you a little tour of the gym.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, especially all the chest stuff they have for Panada. It's crazy.
It's insane. Have you used the decline fly yet?
I have not. No,
oh yeah, yeah. Because we got the flat fly, decline fly, and incline fly. Then incline fly with the rollers, so you can put them on your forearms.
That'll be nice.
Yeah. So it's going to be all kinds of really cool stuff. I know you're supposed to be doing shoulders and arms, but I have a feeling we're going to probably try some other machines now.
I'm gonna let us, wherever the workout leads us. I'm happy with that. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, again, welcome. Huge fan of your physique. I know that right now you are in the middle of prep, right?
Yeah. We are under 15 weeks out from Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. All right. Awesome. And then what was the last show you did before Pittsburgh? Getting ready for?
It was India in 2000. Oh, what year? 2024, I think. No, 2023. Yeah.
That was your last show?
Yeah, November 2023 in India.
Wow. And in the same year you did Dubai, right?
Yeah.
Because I think you did Dubai the year that I was there.
Yeah. I did a lot of shows that year. I did Dubai.
Yep.
I won Legion that year. I won India that year, and did.
And you won Dubai.
Yeah. I won 3 shows that year.
So why did you stop?
I took the year off. It was a lot, a mix of things. One, ending a relationship, and then 2, a serious injury where I couldn't really change much of my upper body. So just getting that rehab.
Was that a public thing, or is that just something you've talked about at all, or not yet?
Oh, yeah, I posted about it, yeah. I was blessed enough to find this guy to get me stem cell therapy down in Colombia, and it's helped. Still not 100%. But
and was it your shoulder?
Elbow.
Mm-hmm. Was it on a particular exercise?
No, it's crazy. I was just popping I was having some pain from it for a while throughout that prep, but, nothing I couldn't manage. Uh-huh. And then I just popped it one day, and then that's when it started to really get inflamed, and I couldn't do anything with it.
Just random.
Yeah.
Man,
that's usually what it is. I remember watching that video.
But that's supposed to be for old people like me, where you're like picking up a gallon of milk off the ground and your back goes out.
Oh my gosh!
What'd you do? I walked up one step and my lower back went out. I mean, that's what happens when you get old.
Yeah, I'm feeling it, but that's what happened. It's crazy. It's a lot of bodybuilders I talk to. It's never something in the gym. It's usually something random.
Yep. Or they're messing around, right?
Yeah, or they're messing around. Yeah, I don't mess around. I don't do none of that anymore.
Yeah. Guys in the gym, have a little too much pre-workout. Then they start to wrestle because one person did like some junior varsity wrestling one time in high school, and then the other guy did varsity wrestling and was going to try to whoop the other guy's ass.
Yeah, I remember. So when I started bodybuilding, like in 2013, I remember like clear as day, Victor Martinez. He tore his bicep or something, arm wrestling somebody.
Yeah. Now that you say it, I remember that.
And ever since that day, I was like, I'm not doing anything outside bodybuilding because it's crazy. Yeah.
No, I remember again, messing around is arm wrestling, turn around, trying to do too heavy a weight, or somebody says, hey man, there's a 300-pound dumbbell, pick it up. Yeah. And something, something like that. Because even when Jay tore his bicep, when I was coaching him, it was 2011, the year that Phil won. And it was 2 weeks out from the Olympia. He was getting ready for a Muscle Tech shoot, and he just put some dumbbells back, and he tore his bicep. Just putting the dumbbells on the rack, but the rack was in front of him. It was an odd angle, and him just doing that, and then tore his bicep. And it was like...
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I'm saying it's the most random stuff that can possibly tend to happen. And I feel that when you tempt fate by rolling around, trying to wrestle, playing Mr. MMA because you watched UFC, or you're playing Xbox or PS5 and thinking that you're going to play WWE, man, people mess around like that. And then F around and find out.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, I'm not trying to find out. So I'm doing my best to
not do that.
Yeah, not do any of it. Yeah.
Talking about recovery, man. So you did the Columbia thing, and then did you do anything else for that recovery for the elbow?
That was the main thing. Before that, I saw a physical therapist, and that helped quite a bit. I could at least train again. But that's physical therapy, stem cell therapy, BPC 157, TB 500. I didn't feel anything from those peptides, though, you know. So I still take them just because I'm like, maybe it's doing something. I'm just not feeling it. Who knows? You know, it's better to take them than not to. But yeah, the big thing was the stem cell therapy.
And you felt like when you did the stem cell, was that something that they just threw IV, or how did they apply the stem cells?
I got it for actually my knee and my elbow, and the knee feels 100% now. But elbow, they did a shot on the outside here.
So they injected it directly into the joint?
Yeah.
Got you. Got you. And then how much better do you feel now on that elbow?
20, 30%. Like if it was like before, like maybe like 30%, like that's where a level I was at. And then after the stem cell therapy, maybe 60-ish, you know.
Got you.
So maybe 70 tops, but 60, 70, yeah.
And right now, I know when we were talking, I think it was at the Texas Pro, when we were backstage, we were talking, and there's been a lot of talk about what you're going to do next, right? And then now that you've mentioned you're doing Pittsburgh Pro, which is awesome, but has it been kind of the classic thought process all the way through? Have you ever thought about doing 212 or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I turned pro in bodybuilding. I'm younger. I mean, I'm 31, but I've been a pro for 10 years. You know.
You turned pro at 21?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
At what show?
Nationals.
Nationals.
Back when it was in Miami still.
Yeah, we had some good parties back then.
Yeah.
With Jay and Phil and the boys, we would go down to Miami, and that was always the best nationals because they had the parties there. I actually take that back. We had some really good nationals here in Texas too, and then they brought it back here recently. But when you were doing that, what division were you, middleweight or?
No, I was tiny. That's why I was a lightweight.
Lightweight.
Yeah. So 154.
Okay.
Alex Rolón was the guy that won the overall that year, and he's already retired, you know. But yeah, I mean, I was 21. You know, it's funny now. I had no idea that I was even going to nationals because in my mind, you know, when you turn pro, your physique should be at such a level that where you can compete, you know.
Yeah.
That was my mind. And like, I thought of guys like Lee Labrada or Sean Ray that are around my height. I'm like, I need to be like 180-ish before I even think about something like that. But crazily enough,
and how tall are you?
I'm 5'5", so
okay.
like around the same height as, I think Sean says he was 5'7".
Yeah.
It's probably 5'6", you know.
5'5" and a half.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, so it's crazy, you know. There was this guy who was dating this girl. A lot of people know him, Nick Trigilli.
Yeah.
He was dating a girl in my city. He lived in Florida. And he saw me at the show, and he's like, man, I think you should go to nationals. And I'm like, I just listened to him. I was like, I don't know anything. All right. You know, he coached me for like a month or two. They broke up, and then he disappeared. But this is
was public. A pro? Was he dating a pro?
I don't know who he was dating. That was none of my business. I was like,
I didn't know if it was somebody we knew.
Yeah. But no hard feelings. He's already talked about it like a couple years ago. But it was still in my mind to go. You know, I couldn't afford USA's.
Gotcha.
I was 20 then, so I had to wait until national championships in November. So I turned pro like 2 or 3 weeks after my 21st birthday.
Oh wow. Mm-hmm. That's a good birthday present.
Yeah. I no drinking on my birthday. I was focused. Yeah.
Were you like C-Bum where were you doing a lot of partying when you're early 20s?
No. I don't know C-Bum just off of no. I was focused, man. I joined the military at 17 years old. So
wow.
Yeah. I was no partying, just focused on.
Was that Army, Marines, or where were you?
I was Air Force. So
Air Force,
smarter guys.
You're like, man, I want to be on the. Where'd they put you at? Were you at a certain base?
Yeah. So crazy enough, I joined to do special forces. So I wanted the better lifestyle of the Air Force, but I still wanted to do cool shit. I ended up making it pretty far. I had 1 month left and ended up, washing out and filling out. So, it was cool. I got to learn a lot, and I still know some of those guys that do some of that work. A lot of those guys are retired now too, or beat up. So I'm kind of happy that I didn't end up going that route.
That was 14 years ago.
Yeah,
That's
I would have. Yeah,
you're so young, but again, when you talk about 17, is that the year that they allow at 17 years of age to enlist?
You got to get your parents' permission, but yeah.
But I think that's the youngest, though, right?
17 is the youngest.
I can't even imagine my son. Like right now, he's about to turn 12, so it'll be like in 5 years. Yeah. Wow, that would be crazy.
But yeah, so I washed out of that. I was at Herbert Field, going through that training for most of the time, and then I'm switching my job to electronic warfare, and I spent the rest of my time at England Air Force Base. Yeah, it's in like near Destin, Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a nice beach out there.
It's a nice area. Yeah, I mean I liked it, and it was it ended up being a blessing because the job I got was perfect for bodybuilding. I didn't deploy at all when I was in the service. I was stuck in a very normal job. I went in at like 6:30. I got off at like I think 3:30, 4:30. And, I ate my meals, it was fine. Yeah. When the normal guys would take their smoke breaks, I would eat my meals, during that time, and they had no issues with it.
So you were in there from 17 to 21, or how long, for 4 years, or how many years were you in there?
I did 6 years. Yeah.
6 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you must have, do they do 6 all at once, or did you have to go back and sign a contract for 2 more?
You can do 4 or 6, for sure. And then, I got into bodybuilding right after I washed out of the special forces training, because the main reason I was 120 pounds and like I was great at like push-ups, sit-ups, and stuff like that, but like carrying those the heavy things we had to carry was really, really hard for me. And so I started hitting the gym, and there was this guy. He was into bodybuilding. He's like, you should look into it. So I walked to the local grocery store and picked up a magazine because I didn't have a smartphone back then, and Dexter Jackson was on the cover. And from that day on, I was like, this is what I wanted to do, and it's crazy. I didn't get to compete with Dexter Jackson, but I got to be on the same stage as him, so, it's a blessing.
That's awesome. Where did you grow up?
Alabama, very small town, Beatrice, Alabama. A couple years in Mobile, but Beatrice is 200, right? Well, maybe 300 when I was a kid, but now 200 people live in Beatrice, Alabama.
Wow, yeah. Super small.
Yeah.
And how long you been in Houston now?
A couple months, like 8, 9 months.
And before that, you were still in Alabama?
No, I was in Tampa, Florida. Once I got out, I moved down. I had a choice to either move to Vegas with my coach or move to Tampa to have a trainer, hypertrophy coach. Joe
okay. Because where's he now?
Joe's still in Tampa. So I was in Tampa for 6 years, every day training with him. Like I saw him more than anybody else in my life. Yeah.
How was that? Because was he doing all your prep too, or was he doing your diet, your everything?
No, just training.
Just training.
I had a few coaches over the years. Matt Porter, he passed away, and then John Meadows, who also passed, and now my coach is Yassine Nasir.
Okay. Yeah, and he's from
France, but he lives in Dubai.
He lives in Dubai.
Yeah.
Right. He lives in the Middle East. Man, make sure take care of yourself, because you don't want him something to happen to him. Following the footsteps of Matt Porter and
No, I do. I honestly, when John passed, I felt like some of the coaches they thought I was like bad luck or something, because I reached out to like 2 and it was like, nah. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Are you serious? They're just like, nah, man, I'm okay.
I'm serious, yeah. And this is when I was placing second at the Olympia. I had 2 people turn me down.
Really?
100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was their? Did they just say you got bad juju?
No, they were respectful. They just said they can't right now. One guy, he said he doesn't have the time, and the other guy was like same thing. He didn't have the time to give me enough attention that I would need to be at that level. So. Good. I wasn't upset. I was just like, okay, well.
At least they're honest. See, I think that's a good thing, to be upfront as much as you can, because so many people try to bring on too many people and then try to give the same level of service, and especially at the Olympia level. And that's why I always try to keep my Olympia group really small, because I knew how hard it was. Even when I was, contemplating working with Chris, I knew that was going to take away because I knew that it was going to be a different structure of time because now you guys were going on Saturday morning and it was a 1 day and I'm already dealing with my Friday night crew with the open. And that was also something that was going on in my head too. And the first time I remember, I stayed up all night. I didn't even sleep.
It takes up a lot of mental space. You know what I mean? It's a huge moment, you know? Yeah. I definitely understand not wanting to take on too many.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, the guys were not done till 12 or 1 by the time you get done because they were getting on stage at 10:30. And then by the time they get back to their room, then they got to eat. Then I look at them. Then it's 2. Then I go eat. And then it's around 2:33. I would eat at 3. And then by that time, it's almost 4 a.m. He's getting up at 5 and to, start eating. And I would be at his room at 5. And so he's just like, late night, early morning. I go, no, late night.
Are you worried about like your cognitive ability being like off because you didn't sleep at all, or no. do you take anything, or you're just locked in?
No, I'm locked in, man.
Okay,
I'm locked in. I'm super locked in. It's only because I've done it for so many years like that. Through all the 20 some odd years of me prepping at that level, that I know myself now. I definitely. The last couple of years, I'm like, I got to get some sleep.
Okay.
Right. The first year when I worked with Chris, it was hard because I believe that was when, I want to say 22 was when we had them go, Hany and Derek went 1-2. And then it was the first year I worked with Chris. And that was the year it was even more difficult because of the fact that they were battling for first. And then I wanted to make sure they were going to peak right for the finals. So I went back to their room that night after prejudging. And again, this is like 1 o'clock in the morning when 38 told them what to eat right after they got off stage. They ate, let the food digest, then look at one, then go look at the other. Then by the time I ate, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go to sleep. I have less than an hour. I'm not going to be able, it'll mess me up even more if I try to sleep and try to wake back up than to just go all the way through. And I just went all the way through.
Are they staying at the host hotel? Everybody
was literally one floor away from another.
Beautiful.
So
okay.
I had Hany that year and Derek were on the same floor, and then I think me and Chris were like on the floor right above them.
Okay.
So we were all like, if I get into the stairwell of the hotel, I could just go up one, come back down one. It was so quick, super easy. I mean, I just throw my flip flops. So I would always build a bag, right? And then what I would do is I would always have all of these things like sweatpants, sweatshirt, all sweat shorts, flip flops, because all of these things is, people are like, you going on vacation? I'm like, no, man, because I know I got to just run and gun.
Yeah.
I got to just boom, boom, boom. Because by the time you go to the next person, then you got to look at the next person. Then you got to go back and rotate in again. So I would always try to make sure that everyone's together. 1 year I had to have Jay and Phil, and Jay was at his house 20, 30 minutes away, and Phil and I were in the same hotel right next to each other. And I'm like, man, after that, I think that's
what I was
09.
thinking. Yeah, I was thinking, what if each one of your guys, or is that a different Airbnb?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm like, no, man, we all make sure we're all in the same spot, in the same hotel, make sure everybody has kitchens, and everybody can just be able to be right next to each other. So that way, if I'm working with somebody, just boom, A, B, and C, and then go back and rotate again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, like I said, 3, 4, people. Even when I had Jeremy and Nicole and Phil, and I'd have to, it was a revolving door in my room. What we would do is look at somebody, give them the update, then the next person update, then go back to the first person, and then I would eat, try to, because a lot of times that was like my worst thing was just I wouldn't eat all day, and then go into then start the rotation over again. And those are the things that was really tough for me. But yeah, to answer your question, that was a long answer to your question, was that I wouldn't, I would just, if I had a short amount of sleep, I wouldn't sleep.
Okay.
Because I felt like it was harder for me to re-wake up again than it would be just to stay awake.
Okay.
Yeah. But so when you were going into this whole thing with, between the coaches and everything else, I guess the Tampa situation, now that you moved to Houston, what made you move to Houston?
I was just really down. The relationship wasn't really going well. My body was, usually if your relationship isn't going well, at least you can go to the gym and like get some aggravation out. But then, you know, also I couldn't train like I couldn't really train. So, you know, I'm not particularly religious, but, you know, so I sat there and made a prayer. And then as soon as I opened my eyes, I saw there was something on the TV, you know, going on. It said Houston, you know, so I was like, okay, well, maybe this is a sign. So I got my stuff. I went out to Houston, stayed in some Airbnbs for a couple months, and things started to get better. I found a physical therapist. I'm like, okay, cool, I can train. Mentally, I started to get better. I got some really good friendships out in Houston as well. Like I had friendships out in Tampa, but nothing nearly as close. Obviously, Joe's the closest guy to me, but like he's you know, he has a family, he has a wife, 3 kids. You know, he's a busy man.
Sure.
So once I got there, I'm like, everything's going better. This is where I need to be. So I got a place.
That's awesome. And is that why you took a long break too? You were going through all of that personal stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And now, when you were coming up, who are the guys that you were looking up to? You know, like you said, you know, Labrada, Sean Ray. Was it mostly because the guys that were kind of similar in height? Is that what you were like gravitating towards?
No, I mean, I'm a fan of just bodybuilding. I think a lot of people are fans of athletes and different things. I'm a fan of bodybuilding because, like, I love Marcus Rule too, and he looks nothing like me. You know what I mean? But in particular, I have a couple different ones. I would say, like, in terms of like mindset, I always liked Jay Cutler. He was probably my favorite. He was just like no nonsense, just get it done type, you know, a person. In terms of physique, Flex Wheeler is by far my favorite. And
Your actually physique is probably one of the closest to his, and like the people you've mentioned so far. Obviously, you got Marcus Rule, who's a big mass monster. You got Jay, who's kind of, you know, a combination. But you got somebody who's like Flex, and I look at your physique and some of your best years and the best shows that when you've really peaked, and I go, wow, you know, I definitely see that.
Thank you. I mean, it's crazy. I would have never thought, but I got to compete on stage with him. I mean, obviously not, and I beat him, but not not nearly at his best. You know, his best would destroy me, but it was cool, man. I think it was 2017. He did the comeback and did classic.
Yes.
It was really cool, man. And like, I get the old saying of like, you don't want to ruin your legacy, but no one thinks of 2017. You know, they still think of him at his best. But it was a cool experience for everyone there, and he was awesome backstage. But back to your question about my favorites, you know, it's funny. I've been seeing Phil more often at shows and whatnot, and getting to speak to him, and we talked about it too. Between that rivalry with him and Kai, I was a huge Kai fan, and I think particularly because it's posing. Like, Kai Green is the reason I got into posing so much. And then it kind of evolved once I started seeing the old school guys, you know. But Kai was a huge influence for a while, you know, because you would watch his videos. And I found other guys back in the day, too, like Dexter and whatnot. They had YouTubes, but they never really explained what they were doing. It was just like your bird's eye view of them training. But with Kai, he would talk to you. And I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, this is why I'm doing this. This is the mindset you need to have, blah, blah, blah. And I was a huge fan of him when I started.
That's awesome. And now, as your body's evolving and everything else, where's your mindset right now? I know your goal is to obviously win your next show, but where's the improvements that you think you're trying to make to be able to really stand out this year?
I think the biggest thing is size. Structurally, I'm pretty happy, and symmetry wise, I'm pretty happy with what I've done this past off season. Even throughout the injuries and whatnot, I was still able to train my hamstrings, and that was a big thing and big goal for me. Another thing I've noticed is just how much better the backs are becoming in classic. So another thing I could really, really focus on, and I'm really happy with the progress there. The only thing that I'm not quite happy with is the triceps, and obviously I wasn't able to do much in that regard.
Because your elbow.
Yeah. But overall,
is it the side you pose on?
Actually, yeah, it is. But overall, I'm really happy, and I think just the same way you broke down Wesley's physique is how I look at my physique. I don't think a lot of bodybuilders actually sit down after shows and really sit there and critique themselves, you know. And then I don't think bodybuilders, even if they do that, they don't sit down and actually make a game plan. Like they're like, oh, I need to get my back better, and I'm like, what are you doing differently than last off season?
Right.
And they're like, I'm training at 100%. I'm like, you should have been training at 100% the last like 3-4 years. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, so that's one thing I appreciate about Joe is he taught me how to kind of adjust my training to what I need to focus on and what I need to kind of throttle back on it. And especially with classic, when you have a weight limit, I've seen guys like they don't think about that weight limit, and they get one body part like massive, and then now they have no more room to grow anything else. You know,
Right.
So symmetry, I think, is very, very important in classic. Yeah,
Very important. And how far are you off your limit?
I'll still think like it depends on what they hype me. To be honest with you, I mean, out of every show except 2, I've been heighted over 5'5", and the 2 times I haven't, you know, it's been an issue. But if they hype me where I normally am, I'll have most likely another 7 pounds.
Okay.
I'll be 10 pounds up from my last showing with another 7 pounds to go. So I was severely underweight the last Olympia I did. And, you know, I competed at around like 170. And
what's your weight class for the 5'5" to 5'6" level?
187.
Okay. And you weighed in at your last show at how much?
About 170, yeah.
Got
yeah.
you. So you got a ways to go.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's what makes me really optimistic and happy because I mean, if I can place 5th place at 17 pounds under the weight cap, that's, you know, that's a lot more room for improvement where you got guys like Ramon really struggling, and, you know, I don't know, a lot of the other guys are really struggling to make weight, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good feeling.
Out of all the guys that you competed against, do you have your favorites? I know that some people hang out backstage and they got some camaraderie. You got any stories, or do you have any connections you have with anybody in the show?
My favorite is definitely Michael the Bull. He's a top guy. Was it the Saharan Eagle? I think, or the Desert Eagle is what he calls himself. He's the coolest, man. And like,
he's just like the desert. He gets dry.
He gets dry. Yo.
He's like the desert.
Honestly, man, I a lot of respect for him. Like he's like, especially that year I dropped from 2nd to 6th. He was actually backstage trying to help me. Like, yo, you should do this. You should do this. You know, this is not your normal, you know, look.
Yep.
And a lot of people, they're not going to do that. They're going to like, oh yeah, he's doing bad. That's good for me. You know. So he earned like many times over that. And every time I go to Dubai, he treats me very well. Him in particular. Story wise, I don't know if I have anything crazy. I was there at Chris's first ever show. I mean, it's funny because I remember, obviously Chris is like really, really popular now. But seeing
he thinks he is
a little bit, yeah.
I think he just thinks he is. Give him a big head, man. Chris, man.
Oh no, I don't. I remember when he started, so I don't have. He doesn't get that.
You were at his first show ever, or are you talking about first Olympia?
First pro show.
Oh, okay.
He lost to me and Darren Charles at that show.
Wow.
And it's hilarious because every time I see he'll drop his shirts and whatnot. That
was classic, right?
It was classic. Yeah. He doesn't like to mention that first show he ever did, you know.
Okay.
Because the next one,
let's definitely talk about it then. Because we got to we got to rib Chris a little bit.
So he does. Yeah, I noticed he likes to start with the Toronto Pro the next year because that's when he started to really, really kill it. But yeah. I mean, it's been crazy. You know, even to the point where, you know, I was sad to miss last year because I thought everyone knew. Apparently it wasn't known, but I could have swore he said that last year was his last year. Maybe he didn't know or whatever, but the little bit I saw, it was his last year. And I also heard Breon was leaving. So I was like, man, I'm going to be like the longest running competitor in Classic now. Everyone I started with is gone. Every single one. Yeah. So,
did you think that Chris, especially being that you were at his first show and you beat him, you know, because I don't remember what he even placed that year. You said that was 3rd?
He got 3rd at the Diana Cadu Classic, yeah.
There you go. So 3rd behind you and Darren. Because I think Darren won that show, right?
Darren won that
show. And you
show.
took 2nd and he took 3rd. So did you ever think at that point that he was going to be a multi-Olympia winner?
No. He was nice, dude. Like,
he laughed. I love Darren. He's like, laughed before he even answered that.
No, I don't know. My brain doesn't even, I guess, doesn't think like that, you know. You know what's funny though? The person I was with at the time, she was very impressed by him, and she was like, "Wow, this dude looks crazy." And I was like, "I just beat this guy. Why what are you talking about?" But
she's like, she's trying to slide into his DMs.
Oh no, none of that. No. None of that. But it's no, it's really cool to kind of see how things has transformed, and like it's motivating for me because my philosophy on bodybuilding is like just self-improvement in general, and like obviously with in terms of the gym I got that pretty down packed, but seeing him excel in other aspects like business and whatnot is really, really motivating and cool to see.
Yeah, it's very much so. I think he brought a lot of eyeballs to the division, and I think that helps all of you because I think it makes it so much more kind of interesting when you have people who are not even into competing start to follow journeys of people that compete, and it motivates them.
Okay.
A lot of people that either compete now because they were just inspired, or they just create a whole new respect for what you guys do, because I think what he did was really interesting was just that you pull back the drape to see what that's like. And again, his vulnerability and everything, that connection that he's always done a good job of connecting with people. But in the past, it was always just like, in my generation and all the people that I coached up until him, it was always about like hiding the hardships.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you want to put on the tough guy image. You want to put on that like emotional armor, I call it. And doing that, and versus like, man, crying, being okay with crying, talking about how you and your significant other are crying together, these things. Because man, imagine Jay Cutler going over there and start crying. Like,
yeah, I can't even picture Jay doing anything like that. Yeah.
Exactly, right? Because our generation that wasn't cool, right? You got to show up and be a man, and that's not manly to be emotional. Now it just shows that you could still be a man and be emotional, and that it's okay. And so if you're going through it as well, you can relate and be okay with it instead of saying, I have to hide that and sweep it under the rug. And I feel like that's what really helped people understand that you can be able to be both.
Yeah.
Where in the past, and if you had any kind of that, it was a weakness. And but when you started, coming up and you started moving forward with it, did you feel like, look, man, I've always think I can win the Olympia? Or is this something where, where's your take on yourself?
When I started, no, that wasn't the motivation. Honestly, I my only thought was like, oh man, I would love to compete with Dexter Jackson. That was the original thought. And then as I kind of grew and developed and whatnot, I wasn't even thinking that far. I was like, I'm very much like a short-term type of thought process guy. Like my first goal was to, let me win a amateur show. Okay. And then, I was able to win my first national show. That was great. And then I took a year off because at the time, no classic, so I was like, okay, how am I going to get into this 212 division? I'm only like 155 pounds,
Right.
It's funny. I'm still a fan of him today, but I really gravitated towards Sean Carita. I was a big fan of Sean. Sean was, I think he had been a pro for a couple years now, and he was still climbing his way, but I could kind of see like, oh man, he's smaller than I am. He's killing it, you know? But I didn't think I could win the Olympia till I started to do really well in classes. So maybe after my first or second Olympia, I was like, okay, I can get there. Maybe not like immediately, but like if I keep doing what I'm doing, I know I can get to that goal.
So right now with the current crop of athletes, where do you think, with Chris being gone now and stepping aside, where do you see the current crop of athletes?
It's crazy. So I have the way my brain works. I have things that I believe but I also realize that I don't know, like it's not 100%. So I do believe I can win the Olympia. I'm very, I like just from like we talked about like logically the weight thing. I'm like, okay, that's a really good cue right there, especially when I play second and things like that. But I do think that like the top group of guys is going to change drastically. Obviously, it's changing because Chris and Breon left, but even more so because the crop of kids I see coming up is it's insane. Like I can see the talent that they have, the roundness of the body, you know, the muscle bellies, the symmetry and whatnot. It's wild because when I started Classic, every couple of years I think, okay, maybe this is the peak of that division. You know, like this is kind of where it's gonna stay. But each and every year I see crazier and crazier physiques popping up out of nowhere, you know.
Right.
And it's really, really cool to see. And I just think it's gonna change a bit over the next maybe not this upcoming year, but maybe the next 2 to 3 years. I think the top 5 will change quite a bit because we see a lot of guys in the top spots that kind of maxed out. In my personal opinion, I think a lot of top guys do have like very visible flaws here and there, you know. I don't want to break down everybody's physique, but yeah, I think if everyone realistically looked at the top 5, you could notice 1 or 2 things in each physique where they're missing something. But I see these group of kids coming up, I'm like, dude, they're not missing anything. They just need the size. And with the way Classic is, you got that limit. Right. You can't. It's not like bodybuilding. You can keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Once you hit that limit, you're stuck. You're stuck. So they're just catching up to you.
That's right.
So it's a cool thing to watch, man, just being a fan of the sport, but it's also a little scary, like, oh man, I gotta stay on my shit, you know.
You do.
Yeah.
When you, it's like life, man. If you're not going forward, you're going backwards.
Yeah.
And bodybuilding is always evolving. And it doesn't matter what division you're in. And you always have to try to improve, because if you try to stay the same, you're gonna get passed up.
100%. And I mean, like, I've been every place in the sport now, and I've seen it, you know. I kind of hit a plateau for a while, in 2022, and then you see guys. Ramon popped up out of nowhere, placed second the year you started coaching Chris, you know, and you can see it now with Ramon's been kind of steady, and then you had guys like Wesley and Mike pass him up.
Yep.
You know, you're right. You gotta keep evolving.
Speaking of those guys, they're getting ready for the Arnold. It's 4 weeks out.
Yeah.
You got Wesley, you got Mike, right? You got Wesley, who won the Arnold last year, and you have Mike, who took second to Chris at the Olympia. How do you see that matchup?
Personally, I'm leaning towards Mike heavily. Like his physique right now is really, really incredible. Mostly with the way Classic is, we don't have as many poses, but his front double is perfect in my opinion. I don't see any flaws in that pose. I think detail wise, he doesn't have the most detail, especially in the upper chest for like the side chest pose. And back double, upper back, beautiful. The hamstrings a little thin from the back, so that would be my assessment there. But I think Wesley's. I mean, you did his physique the other day.
Critique, yeah. He's talking about that just literally yesterday coming out. And so depending on when you listen to this podcast, if you haven't seen it, I did a rate your physique bodybuilding breakdown, and my first person ever doing that with is actually Wesley, who was on the podcast just before that. And I'm like, you know, I went through it, but like we were about to say, the way I looked at it, did you see anything different than when I broke it down?
You're pretty spot on. I think the only thing is just the lower body, you know, for sure. And I did like what you said about the calves, because no one ever talks about the calves. Like you can still win shows and place well with not having great calves, but if you have it, it's like that unspoken thing. Like you maybe don't notice it, but once they have it, it helps a lot. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Even with men's physique division, right? When I was coaching Jeremy, and I would always like, hey man, we got to stay on top of your calves. Yeah. Because anything you can see, you can do. And even with the quads, we would still train quads, because you don't want to look like you're walking on your hands. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, because a lot of guys would, right? And a guy that, you know, I would always turn around and be like, man, get your legs a little bit bigger, was Ismail Martinez. Yeah. And now his legs are finally starting to come up. But forever, he didn't even fill in his shorts. And I'm like, bro, that's hurting you, because it doesn't look right, even though you're wearing shorts. But now he's made improvements, and it's been great. But when I was working with Jeremy and we were on the roll for all those Olympia wins, I was always, you know, every aspect of anything that the judges are going to see, even while clothed, was important.
I agree. Yeah. They may not say it, but it's subconsciously there, you know?
100%. And if you have two athletes and it's right on the cusp, and one has calves and one doesn't, and whether it's a classic or it's even in men's physique, the judge is going to look at that.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says because it's a body part. And when you are doing a front double bicep and your arms are too big for your calves, it actually makes your symmetry worse. And people don't understand that. And that's another reason why when I used to train, come down here and train Alti, Ronnie Coleman's girlfriend at the time, 20 years ago, I would go in and train at Metroflex, and Ronnie would be doing some arms, and I'd look over at Ronnie and I'm like, hey, Ronnie, you only do this and that, you're not doing that much with arms. And he goes, oh man, you know me, my arms are gonna grow and make my calves look smaller. And I look over and he would do a front double bicep and he'd go, check it out. And I'm like, oh yeah, right, because again, his arms would get so freaky that the bigger they would get, the smaller his calves would look. So again, always looking at the symmetry. And he was very aware of it and cognizant of it. So it was really good because he could have blown it out and got it even bigger if he would have trained his arms more, but he knew that it could actually hinder his physique.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's why he's the best. Yo, that's interesting.
Yeah, but he knew enough to be able to understand that, because what you look at in the gym isn't what you need to look at when you're on stage. And sometimes because you have your belt on, you have your shorts on, all of those things, you end up getting into like, how great do I look in the gym? No, it's not about how great you look in the gym, because you have perfect lighting, you got a gallon of water, your sodium's high, especially if it's after, a high carb meal or a high carb day or a cheat day, and you look like you're all blown out with a magic light because you got that natural light coming in, and you're just like, whoa, here you go. But when you really break it down, you have to turn around and be able to break it down and look good in bad light.
Yeah.
You got to look good with your posing trunks on or your underwear all hiked up when you're wearing boxers in the gym and you're pulling them off and you're like, okay, I'm 12 weeks out. How's my waist to shoulder ratio? How's my quad sweep? Is my hams dropping on my side chest? My calves popping on my front double bi? All of those things. So again, it's that crazy attention to detail that you need to be able to geek out on so that you can be able to do that. And those greats understand that.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So I think, when you really break it down, I do think Mike's got a phenomenal physique, but it's going to be interesting because I think with that much mass, it's so different than, again, that's why they say he's got like more of a bodybuilder's body.
Okay.
And that's going to be interesting as he evolves. Like, again, understanding kind of where the cap is and when to come down a little bit lighter and show out some more detail versus I want to be blown out a little bit more because I want to have a little more mass in certain poses.
Okay,
so it's going to be interesting is what I think, because again, he's now starting to catch his stride. So being able to go back-to-back shows between the Olympia and Arnold, and then Wesley kind of dipping from the last Olympia and saying, I want to get back and become a better version of what I was at the Arnold last year. But I think the other thing is that, what do you think about Ramon where he's at?
I had a question for you, but I answered that first. We talked about it the other day. I thought it was interesting because this all kind of began when he lost to Wesley at that previous Arnold. He did that 6-week prep, and just look. I remember the video. Him and Chris were training together, and he didn't look 6 weeks out. He looked like he could compete like any time. He was shredded. He was big, but obviously, I'm guessing he was way over his weight cap. And, I think that's the issue a lot of guys are going to start to struggle with, is like if you start to get too much over your weight cap, it's going to be more and more difficult to peak. I mean, I'm not an expert in that, but that would be my guess to why he's been struggling. And even to the point I remember after that show, he's like, I'm going to start training heavier and this and that. I'm like, I don't know, man. I like, if you start training heavier, you're going to gain even more muscle and it's going to be even more difficult,
Right.
And I personally, like, just from a bird's eye view, I think that's what could have happened. But, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of that comes back at you because when you have a stretched out physique, it's like a balloon. And when you grow into that frame, it's really hard to bring it back and look sharp and look detailed. So when you have to come back for a particular body part, when you start to, your midsection gets blown out and you're trying to bring it all back in, that's very difficult. When you're a weight class and you're trying to, like in classic, bring it back down and you've overgrown, now all of a sudden you've changed your actual structure. And then the muscle around your skeletal frame doesn't fit the same anymore. So it would be very similar to if Chris had to keep coming back and trying to come in looking as impressive. Well, now all of a sudden he's looking impressive at 252 in open, and then trying to shrink back down to 242 is going to get a different look because he started to grow and look his best actually being fuller and heavier versus being smaller and tighter. And it's restructure, your frame just starts to get rearranged a bit.
Though, you know what, I think I thought of a good example. Like I remember when Flex Lewis was still competing. People said I don't know how much he weighed, maybe 220-ish, something like that. I remember back in the day, they would say he would look so crazy at that weight. And even though he still won those Olympia titles, but he would look less impressive once he got down to that 212 mark.
Right.
And I think that's probably kind of where my mind goes with that.
Yeah, Derek Lunsford, same thing.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
But so looking, because again, I love to kind of get an idea of what's going on in classic and whatnot. And I remember Wesley saying he thought his Olympia, like he might have changed his mind since then. I don't know if you guys talked about it on the podcast, but originally he said that he thought he looked better at the Olympia than he did at the Arnold, even though the placing was much worse. I even looked at some photos. I don't know if you had a chance to, and I was like, okay, I could kind of see that. Photos don't show the whole picture. They're literally 1/2 of a second.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought the same thing. I was like, man, he actually does kind of look better at the Olympia in the poses I saw. What did you guys kind of go over there? What you thought?
Not really. He didn't bring that up, and we didn't compare the two. I just remember seeing what I saw.
Yeah.
But there's two things. Number one, and the most important thing, is who you're standing next to.
That is a very good point. Yeah.
Right. So when you're standing next to people like Ramon being off and beating him again, Ramon was not on.
Yeah, for sure.
At the Arnold, and you beat him. But coming in and then having guys like Urs at his all-time best. I thought Urs was his best ever. Mike at his all-time best. And then you have, I believe it was, who was in...
Hosama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Him and I think and Breon?
Breon, yeah. Breon. Yeah.
Yeah, and Breon. And those guys, it's a whole different...
That's a good point.
Setup.
Very good point.
Right? So it's also a bit of that as well. So when you do that, and then also there's something called the hype train, right?
Yeah.
And you want to ride it, but you don't want to ride it off a cliff. And sometimes you ride that shit right off a cliff.
It was getting crazy. I remember. It was getting crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And I think that can also get ahead of it when it comes to everybody, because then what ends up happening is the expectation is unrealistic. And so they're like, everybody's like, okay, the hype is growing, the hype is growing, the hype is growing. He's going to be the next Arnold. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. And then it's a lot of, and that's again, we talked about pressure when I had him on the podcast. And that pressure, I feel like really got to him because he had so much attention after he won. And now all of a sudden it's a little piece of that, like, oh man, this is your potential that's being met.
You know what? Like it really is. Obviously Chris has his pressure and whatnot, but placing, like being in that number 2 spot is a lot too, because it's a lot, especially with me dealing with that at the time. And I remember Ramon was just starting. You had his whole dinosaur army, like
dinosaur army,
bro. It is a lot. It is a lot to kind of manage and to deal with. And I spoke to you and I asked you like kind of how you deal with your athletes. And obviously, a lot of coaches don't have that experience helping their athletes deal with that type of pressure. So that's a whole other aspect that a lot of people don't think about.
Yeah, and again, a lot of people ask me how I do it, and just to give you a little taste of that, it's understanding the personalities and trying to figure out the ebb and flow. It's emotional judo, right? Judo is a lot of push and pull, and when you're working with an athlete, you got to figure out what motivates them and what doesn't, and then if you know that this is not working, and you got to shift your attention on more positivity, or it's not that it's negative, but just finding those things so that they can fulfill the check marks in their brain and getting, hey man, you could still do this, this, and this better. Some people are going to feel better at being able to really understand that I need that extra 5%. Tell me about that extra 5% so I can make sure that I obsess about it. And other people say, I need you to really focus on that extra 95%.
Okay.
And again, I'm used to dealing with those people, those high achievers, like the Phil Heaths of the world, were always about like when he was on like dream killer mode, it was always just about trying to, it was never enough.
Okay.
It was never good enough. And not, again, you ask him, I probably told him he's good enough, like 2 or 3 times. And he won 7 Olympias, right? Mm-hmm. And arguably he should have won that 2010 Arnold too.
Yeah.
And then he took second to Kai. But that's what set him up. And I said, look, man, if you could look that good and play second, if you come in even better in 2011, then everyone's going to have problems. I don't care who it is. And that was right after Jay coming in his best in 2009. And that was right after getting beat by Kai and after looking crazy. But you got to have somebody who can handle that pressure. And it's pressures are going to either make you crumble or they're going to turn you into a diamond.
100%.
And not everybody's going to be able to handle it the same way. And there's only so much a coach can do. But at the end, I always try to be able to kind of figure out which pressure, how much, and what can be able to do to harden them into that diamond. Okay. And so it's a lot of that being able to figure out digging deep. And again, some people just fake it till they make it. They're good for a little while, and then all of a sudden they crumble because it's just they can only handle so much. And I remember hearing stories, and it's something I want to go and speak to Flex Wheeler about, but him having some of the best genetics in the world, arguably some of the best ever, and then having wrappers of Wendy's underneath his car seat during prep, going into the drive-through, that self-sabotage, sometimes that's relieving the pressure because you're self-sabotaging so that you don't want to have to live up to it. Because what if I do win? Now I got to come back and win again.
That, or even to the point was like, what if I did give him my all and I still didn't win,
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And that's exactly it. So again, I think that's a good conversation to have with Flex. With everything, he's been through. But I do feel that it's every person is different and you need to feel out what really motivates that person.
Okay.
Yeah. So, again, and then having to be able to reset and repeat. It's not something that you're going to use the same exact formula with every year. You always have other things going on. I remember when Phil lost his dad, you have Jay, he was going through a divorce. Yeah. I mean, dude, like there's like life-changing moments that are going on with people, and you're trying to do that, but you're also trying to win a show. So there's so many different things, and they affect you. It's just a matter of how can you be able to shift your energy, but still try to get that outcome that you want, which is win the Olympia. Mm-hmm. So, and now you're going to have to do the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, the last time I got a divorce and sat out a year, I went from 9th to 2nd. So, hopefully we do a repeat.
Were you married or no?
Yeah.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of, yeah.
But you guys didn't have kids, right?
No kids.
Okay.
No kids. Yeah.
But you guys were together for a little while?
Yeah. 2.5 years. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So not super long, but years.
Yeah. Well, any marriage is a marriage, man. I mean, it's an emotional bond, and But now, I can tell the energy, man, is building up.
You know what? I'm feeling a lot better. It took a while. I felt like I was like on autopilot for like all of 2024, and it's kind of shitty, but finally getting back into feeling like myself and getting things done, it's great, it's really nice.
That's good. The last person I do want to get your critique on, because he's one of the top 5 guys, and he's actually going to be here in a couple of weeks. It's going to be Urs, man. What do you think of Urs? When I say the name Urs, what comes to mind?
I think he's like one of the most positive guys. He's really good at he's really good for the sport, I think, with how open and he is with training with people and whatnot. I think it's great. I really do. Outside of that, physique wise, I think.
Do you think he was at his best?
I think he's very consistent. I don't like even. I know he didn't place as well at the Arnold. I think he's really, really consistent. I mean, even though I mean, he's placed third. What every year he's been at the Olympia. I think he's more consistent than probably anyone competing. I think the only thing is maybe a little bit more triceps and a little bit more back. But his taper from the front is really, really nice. Like that, his front double is really, really nice. How he's structured, and his conditioning is top notch still. Top notch. So yeah. That's my thoughts on that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So now, is there anything else you want to share right now? Because I know we're going to get ready to go blast a workout. Is there anything else that you want to let your fans know that is coming up? Because again, you're what, 15 weeks out now, you said?
Yeah, a little under 15.
A little under 15 weeks. And then I guess how much heavier do you think you want to share with fans, like where you want to, what you're going to land?
Yeah, I think I'll be 10 pounds.
10 pounds heavier from your last show?
From my last.
Roughly 2 years ago.
It's been, it's been a minute. It's wild. But I think I'll be about 180. So I think I'm really happy with that. And then still hopefully another 7 pounds of room. You know, the weird thing is like, will I need that? I don't know. With me being shorter, you tend to get like, oh, you should switch to 212. You know, like you get those comments a lot quicker than like a taller guy at his weight cap. Yeah. Because I remember watching Chris, like even like 2-3 years ago. It's like Chris could win an open show like 2-3 years ago, and but like there's literally nobody else, no tall person, no short person that could just literally just a couple weeks later win an open show. Besides him, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see how my physique looks at 180, and we'll go from there.
Well, I can't wait, man. We're gonna go blast some shoulders, some arms, maybe a little bit of some other exercises because I know you want to try some of the other Panada equipment, and we'll see, kind of see where you're at. And you excited?
I'm excited. Yeah. You know what's fun? I'm gonna tell the audience. Yo, I talked to Hany on the phone the other day. He's like, hey man, you know, on the podcast, he's like, you know, if you got something like deep, dark secret that you've never told anybody, you want to share that on the podcast, you know, just let us know. And that'll really do well. Really, I was like, I don't have anything crazy.
Well, that's why it's called the truth. I said, man, now's the time. If you got something you want to share that you had never, something special. I didn't say deep dark. I said
he didn't see deep dark.
Deep dark secret. I can get you arrested, bro. I don't need you to do that. But I said, if you have something that's special that you have not shared with your audience and your followers, because you've built up a pretty good following, you know, and you got some hardcore fans, man. You're like, I call you the Will I Am of bodybuilding, bro, because you remind me, because you're chill, you know, you got this like this positive energy to you. You got a great personality. And I feel like, you know, I want to be able to say, hey, if there's some stuff that you want to share, then by all means, you know, if there's something in there that you want to be able to kind of get that core audience to be able to kind of, you know, say, hey, man, I really hadn't touched that on that yet, but I wouldn't mind at some point.
I mean, you know, it's funny when, like, in my mind, I think everything I go through is normal. I guess, you know, lots of people going through divorce, lots of people have injuries. You know, they've not been able to do the things they wanted to do. The only thing I say, it's definitely been a rough couple of years, and the years have kind of flown by. You know, like I was like, oh man, it's been 3 years since I was like top 2. You know, and you know, like each and every year there's like something that happens, and I'm like, oh well, you know, next year will be better because like I won't have the gyno surgery I have to get, or I won't lose 20 pounds from a sickness. You know, like starting prep or whatever it may be, and there's always something, and you never know when your time is up, you know, so that's always a little scary. You know, I again, being a fan of the sport, I've seen guys, even like Branch, he's placed second once, never happened again, you know. So you want to hope and wish, and you want to be optimistic, like, okay, your time is still coming, I'm still young or whatever. But then you also have that fear in the back of your head, like, oh man, what if I've already seen like the best of my time on the stage? You know, maybe I won't get another shot. Maybe there's new up-and-comer guys that are going to take that thing that I had that opportunity to get, but I let X, Y, and Z kind of get in the way of that from happening. So I don't really know. I'm still working my way through that, doing my best to stay positive, keeping a steady mind, doing like try to, I don't know, keep my mind filled with as much positive and motivating things as I can. Because a lot of times what people will do is they'll let their mind be filled with like negativity, especially when you get bigger on social media and whatnot. And like Nick does a great job at it. Like Nick is fantastic at it. Like I was like, holy crap,
Which
bro.
Nick?
Nick Walker.
Okay.
I was like, bro, you taking a lot of shit from missing the Olympian, and you handled it very well. But a lot of people will let that negativity really, really get to them. You know, I know there's a lot of other pros out there that don't handle it very well. And, you know, it affects me, but like I said, I try to push that aside, and I read motivational books, podcasts, things like that. I've been watching a lot of bodybuilding content lately. Anytime I see myself, I'll quickly get off the thing, but I still love it, you know? So, you know, hopefully, you know, I think of people and their journeys. You know, obviously Chris's journey wasn't like perfect, but like more so than other people's. Like he's an example of like how to do everything right somewhat the first time, and you know, reach your goals without much you know, pushback. I would hope at the end of my journey that it shows people that you can make mistakes, but as long as you keep getting back up, you can kind of get to that goal you want to get to. You know, it's never too late to keep pushing and keep trying and stand back up. Absolutely,
man. I think the key in what you just said is the positivity part. People don't understand that it's okay to be nervous. It's natural, right? But you do not want to sweep things under the rug. You need to be proactive in nature. And as long as you have a plan and you're executing on that plan, and you make sure that you're eating your food, you're training, all this, and you got your top 5 Olympia guy, right? You've been as high as second in the world, and I'm telling you this. It's something that needs to happen daily. That daily affirmation needs to be had. So you can turn around and be tough on yourself, but at the same time, you got to give yourself some grace and say, I have the plan, and as long as I'm doing all of the things that I'm supposed to do with my cardio, my training, my mental mindset, making sure my recovery is on point, my massages, every aspect of my plan is going through, I'm going to be better every day, right? I'm going to get better at it. I might have an off workout here and there. It's never going to be perfect, but as long as you know that everything in your plan is being executed properly, you can know in your mind and in your heart that you're putting 100% into it. It's the anxiety that comes in. It's the little devil that shows up on your shoulder that kind of talks you out of doing things. And then subconsciously, you're not going to do the cardio as much, or you're not going to be able to do the training as hard. You're not going to be able to eat your meal because now all of a sudden the anxiety is kind of coming in on you, and you're missing meals. You're not sleeping enough, all of those other things. And all of those things are needed to become a champion. So you just need to be able to get back on the horse and be able to do the things that you know you can do because you've done it before. That's it. But you have to stay positive with that. Okay. Doesn't mean you can't be hard on yourself and say, hey man, I'm going to really make sure I'm going to bust out that workout, but you have to be positive and continue to keep your mind in the right positive frequency. Because if you don't, and you got to be able to talk about it too. And you got to be able to say, hey, look, we killed it this weekend. I ended up doing back and biceps. I did this, I did that. This is all the good things that came over, but I'm going to change up a couple of things because I want to be able to make sure that I feel a little bit more with my tricep. You can always try to room for improvement, but it's a balancing act. You got to feed on the positive first, then be able to become better at the things that you think that you could improve on for the next workout or the next week or the next session. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah. So you got to just, man, because you have all the tools. You just have to continue that process because that's making your body and your mind stronger together.
Yeah,
man. You got to take that self-doubt and throw that shit away. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. You know, real quick, you know, I guess I've built up a reputation of being very humble, and it's because I don't like to be wrong. That's probably the more so reason I'm humble, you know. But you know, I love the banter I see with guys competing, you know, like the confidence and whatnot. And I kind of want to do that sometimes, but then I'm like, man, what if I'm wrong, you know? But like, I do want, what I would love to do this year is to kind of make things really exciting, you know, like it's cool that everyone's very nice, and I don't mean to say we shouldn't be nice, but like I feel like we should have a little bit more of that confident talk, that little bit more of that shit talking classic, just to make it a little bit more fun for the athletes. I mean, not athletes, but the fans. You know.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that?
I think you got to do it comfortably, because if something is done disingenuinely,
Yeah.
it comes across as being kind of like a outward facade.
Okay.
And it's like you kind of fake it, and people can see through it, and then they go, man, that's just, it's not really him.
Okay.
But if you turn around and you go, all right, I want to be able to sit down and say, okay, I'm looking better and I can't wait to bring it. And you start layering in, like, can't wait to get on stage with so-and-so and so-and-so, right? Because I don't even know who's doing Pittsburgh right now. Who's confirmed?
Josema, Michael DeBull, and I don't know how to pronounce this correctly, but Carlos Donmer.
Okay.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
All those guys.
All the guys are, right? Because they all have their strong points, and I think it's going to be a really good lineup. So again, it's okay to do that, but if you don't want to have to trick yourself into putting yourself out there, it's got to feel very natural.
My big thing is that not so much me. It's more so I don't want to offend anybody, because I still want to be friends with everybody. You know?
Yeah.
And I don't want, like, a lot of bodybuilders can be very sensitive, especially during prep.
Yeah.
You know. And I've already seen that with certain guys. I'll make a joke and then, like, they get real. I was like, oh, okay, my bad, man. You know? But that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, but you got to remember one thing about that. As long as you're getting some positivity out of it, meaning, hey man, I'm feeling good about myself, and I'm again going out there and I'm going to whoop some ass. Everybody has their own way of doing it, but everybody I've worked with that has been a top tier champion has their own formula. They don't make it up.
Okay,
it's one of those things. It's just their inner like, you look at Jay. He never turned around and being like talking all that crazy crap, right? Like anything that they did that they talked crap was backstage was all made up, right? When they did the whole thing with Ronnie and him and Triple H back in the day and stuff like that. They told him to do that, right?
Okay.
But when it comes to the fact that just be you, but be okay with being, hey man, I can't wait to get on stage with so-and-so.
Okay.
You know, because just make it natural. That's the whole thing. Because it's okay if you want to say, can't wait to hit that back double bicep standing next to so-and-so and so-and-so. Okay. You know what I mean? But that's totally, again, you're doing that for the fans, but make sure you're doing it for yourself first.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's it. Gotcha. You know, because don't make yourself get all paranoid because you posted something and then now all of a sudden, oh man, this guy might be taking it the wrong way. You guys are there to compete. You guys are there to get up in there, and this is like gladiator match, but on stage. So, but be okay with it, and don't sit there and have to second guess it, because then it's just going to get you're going to get in your head. Okay, have fun with it. You know.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
That's it, brother. I can't wait to see your next rendition of you, because you got, this is the first time I see you a little bit big in your shirt there, bro. I'm not used to seeing you that big in the shirt. So it's good, man. It's good. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead, guys, and we're going to get this workout in. And man, I really appreciate you coming out, and let's have some fun.
Let's do it. Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready. Yeah.
All right, man. So again, guys, thanks to Ruff Diesel for coming in. Hany Rambod, Ruff Diesel, and that's the truth.